Hey guys, this is Dread. I'm back with another video. And with Ghost of Yotei coming out next week, I thought now would be a good time to do a high-level review of Ghost of Tsushima Legends meta gameplay loops, just so that I can capture all the information, and then when Yotei Legends comes out, I can compare and contrast and see how the new game builds on what Legends established, or if it goes in a different direction. That being said, I'm going to review the meta, and then in the next video I plan to also incorporate hybrid builds and see how the off-meta gameplay styles can be incorporated while still being effective. Without wasting any time, let's jump straight into it. Now, the first meta playstyle that I wanted to go over was the Black Powder Flash Sticky Assassin. Now, the reason why I have them paired together like this is because they're pretty much identical, except for when you use black powder bombs to damage and kill, you use flash to build ult and then ult. That makes up for the loss in damage. Now, this playstyle or this gameplay loop has two aspects to it. One, if you're spawn trapping or cutting off, you want to smoke first. And then when you get the grouping, you throw your sticky and concussions for a double ult. Now this is assuming that you start with full resolve. This is the baseline, the first thing that you have to do. You just have full resolve. So you double ult with the sticky and concussions. And then after you do the first ult, you then black powder or flash into melee for a finish. Now the reason why you want to save your flash till after the double ult is because you can stun and then finish off, or you save the black powder until after you double ult because you've regained your resolve, so now you can just focus on dealing damage. Whereas if you throw the black powder when you do the first ultimate, you're gonna kill a lot of enemies, but you're not gonna get as much resolve as you would by throwing the concussions. So it's a slight difference right there, but it makes a big difference in the overall execution of the gameplay. Now the other situation is when you're fighting at the zone. Now for both playstyle loops, for both gameplay loops, the most important thing for this to work is to have full resolve for your ultimate and also to have good grouping. Grouping is your best friend if you're playing bombs because it maximizes your damage and your resolve gain. So if you're fighting at the zone, first thing you want to do is throw your ultimate, kill the disciple, tag some annoying enemies, and then you throw smoke. When you throw the smoke, this gets you a good grouping, and then you can throw your sticky and the black powder or concussions if you're playing flash to deal some heavy damage. After you've dealt some heavy damage, you have a next ult ready, and this is where you decide. If it's a tanky wave, you probably want to ult again. If it's not, you've killed all the enemies that could kill you, you just bomb and use your melee to clear it off and finish, and then you save your ultimate. And with your ultimate saved, you can then go to the next spawn, where if you pre-throw the concussion going into the next spawn, you can double ult. And by the double ult, and by the time you finish it, you will have your smoke and sticky back in order to set up, if it's a tough spawn, you can throw your smoke, or you can throw your sticky and save the smoke for later. So this is pretty much the loop. Most important things: having ult, having good grouping, and then making sure that when you throw your sticky and your bombs, they really hit everybody and you maximize your AoE damage. So that's basically it. And this is probably one of the strongest gameplay loops that you can probably execute in Hellmode, in survival, especially when you're doing duos, mainly because the damage output is huge and there's really not a lot of small details to memorize. So now that we've gone over it, let's go over some gameplay and you can see what I mean. You can see here, this is wave 7.17.2, Blood and Steel. Now I ulted in late in order for both waves to get in, and as you can see right here, even though I ulted, the execution there actually allowed me to generate a double ult just from one sticky and a few concussions. Insane amount of resolve gain when you get the good grouping. And at the end here, I try to finish off with some melee to clear up and just have my resolve for the next spawn. But it's a tricky zone because the orb is coming and it's quite close. So I decided to play it safe and just finish with the ult. But it's fine. After I clear this right here, I end up just going to camp and regaining some of that resolve back because my teammate is holding an enemy. But as you can see right here, waiting, getting the grouping, nuking, destroys everything as easy as you like it. The second meta playstyle I want to go over is for the Toxic Spirit Kunai Assassin. Now this is your high AoE damage, high ability refresh focused playstyle. And the starting point is you want to have your ultimate, you ult in, you target your high HP enemies, so this is Oni Lords, Oni Defenders, purple ones. And then after you ult, you do your vanish. Now you can either use one vanish or you can chain it. Usually I want to chain it if I have more enemies that have more HP than spearmen. And if the majority of them, you want to double vanish. If not, if there's less than that, you probably can get by with just one. After the vanish, you then smoke. You can, obviously shoot to set up some SK kills while you're in the smoke or while you're in the vanish. And then when you're in smoke, you just start throwing. And then that will get you your ult back and get you your cooldowns of the ability and the smoke, and you're ready for the next spawn. This is a very, very good gameplay loop because you're invisible in 3 of the 4 setups. So in ult you're invis, in vanish you're invis, and smoke you're invis, which is great for no damage runs, great for perfect solos, especially when you can get all your resets. So as soon as you maximize and learn how to play this, you're just going to be an absolute animal in P7 and survival. And we can expand some more on that by going into some gameplay. Now this is wave 4.1, Blood in the Snow, and a perfect solo. Now, again, I'm going to execute the gameplay loop exactly how I described it. Here I do some setup for my kunai kills, and this build is very technical. You gotta do the exact amount of damage needed on each individual enemy, and then you can chain your kunais perfectly. So I ult in, tag the Oni Lords, and then I headshot my brutes because the double vanish with the headshot will put them into SK range. Double headshot, weaken on the Oni Lord, and the whole spawn is SK. We secure the SK kills. As you can see here, my invis uptime is maximized. I ulted in, I was invis. I smoked, I was invis. Vanished, I was invis. And the only time I'm not invisible, I am throwing kunai kills to secure my resets. That's just perfect execution for no damage. You will never get hit if you do that. Third meta playstyle involves the black powder with the spirit kunai. Now this is going to be a lot like the Toxic Vanish, but again, of course, you have less AoE damage since black powder can only hit such a large enough area. Now again, the execution is going to basically be identical to your Toxic Vanish, but it's a little bit more forgiving in the sense that you don't have to get perfect spirit kunai resets. You have bombs. Bombs are a good CC tool. You have kunai, great CC tool. And obviously you're going to be using a refreshing vanish to have some health sustain, which is also on a shorter cooldown. So it's less forgiving and obviously very good damage when played right. So as you can see here, I lead in with the ultimate. I get a tag in on the Oni Lord, I get a tag in on the Defender. Not enough for perfect reset on the kunai, but again, bombs are forgiving. You get the constant damage from the black powder. And the other reason why they're forgiving is because unlike a Toxic Vanish, your black powder are an ammo resource and you can get them pretty much anytime. So again, the reset is mainly for smoke, and that comes back pretty quickly. But again, we finished the wave. I was already thinking about going to Lighthouse. That's why I played to make sure I have my resolve back. The reason why it's important to always have your resolve when you're playing bombs is because you cannot kill disciples without having your ultimate. You either have to waste your ammo or waste whatever resources to kill them. So we go in with the ultimate. We tag 2 enemies. We're already thinking about chaining our kunais and getting our resets back. Obviously, bad move there with the kick, but it's okay. We can chain our kunai, deal some damage to black powder from the smoke, and then we vanish and Moonmaster cancel to set up a chain or an assassination and get the resets, Zoran and Deft Hands. But that wave is pretty much donezo with the kunai kills right there. And as you can see, again, I played to make sure that I have my ammo and I also have my full resolve and my smoke back. And this is what you want to do constantly with this sort of gameplay loop. You always want to have your resolve and you always want to have your smoke because you never know what's going to happen. Right here, we have our smoke back, so we're able to cut the enemies off from giving us an annoying spawn because they take forever to get the ledge. And again, here, this is a pretty low HP anyway, so it's like we're just going to use the bombs and the kunai to clear. And the trick with kunai really is you want to chain them and make sure you're getting enough kunai kills to reset them, because they are a excellent CC tool. And by that I mean kunai can stop an Oni Lord slam. So if you consistently refresh your kunai, you can consistently stop Oni Lords from doing what they want. So if you know how to play for your kunai kills, as you can see right here, I go for the disciple and then I set up 2 kunai kills. Oni Lord is about to slam me, I say no thanks, I throw my kunai, get an instant reset into the vanish, and that's obviously free resolve, which sets me up for an ult after my vanish is done. And again, I repeat that same process. I kunai into the ultimate, and then that's free resolve and free resets. And I keep chaining my kunai, because if I don't, I'm losing a lot of damage. And obviously, since they reset when I use them, it's a perfect setup. So there, play for my resolve, and I wrap things up. Now, Weightless Spirit Kunai Assassin again follows a similar gameplay loop to Toxic Vanish and Black Powder, but you don't have the AoE damage. Instead, you rely on the bow to set up your kunai kills. So as you can see right here, your gameplay loop, you start with the ultimate, you go in, tag some enemies. Usually you want to tag in some high level enemies, or set up 1 extra kunai kill, and then you smoke and throw that kunai to get the resets going. And obviously when you do that, you also deal some damage to some of the enemies, which helps with setting up even more kunai kills. So third step, more SK kill setups, you're shooting, you're chaining the kunai, so you can chain even more kunai and keep that going. And usually, by the time you finish executing this third step in the loop, you have pretty much most of it cleared, so you can just continue throwing kunai and just saving your ultimate, and you're ready to go to the next spawn. Now, that being said, we can go over straight into the gameplay so we can kind of understand what we're talking about here. So as you can see right here, I use my ultimate to go take care of the Oni Lord. As soon as you can get the Oni Lord out of the way, the rest of the spawn gets easier. So after the ult, I smoke and start setting up some kunai kills there, and I start trying to chain them. I didn't get 1 kunai kill on the far left, which is why I didn't get my reset here, but it's fine. I have my vanish, and as soon as I can get an assassination there, I should be able to reset the kunai. And I make use of the chain kunai tech within the vanish to get my kunai kills while staying invisible, and that helps me clear that wave, and I'm ready to go to the next one. So again, it's a very straightforward gameplay loop, and it doesn't have as many steps to it as the others. It's not as critical as Toxic Vanish. It's more forgiving because you have a lot of cooldowns, especially if you have cooldown reduction on the charm. But again, I ult in, set up some kunai kills, and then I just start chaining, start going to town. And as I'm thinking about my ultimate, I will throw kunai before the ultimate because it's free resolve that after I come out of the ultimate, I can already start making progress towards the next ult. And again, it's very straightforward. You can just keep shooting, keep SK chaining, keep ulting, keep smoking, and then you're done with the spawn. It's that easy. And Weightless Spirit is good because the damage is low, so you can just keep shooting and keep shooting and keep shooting to regain your resolve back and be ready for the next one. So that's about it. It's as good as it gets. Now, Weightless and Blowgun ult spam assassin builds are fairly straightforward. In the case of Weightless Spirit, it's probably the most favored build amongst players and Hellmode duos, primarily because of infinite ammo and ease of execution for the gameplay loop. So as you can see here, it's a 2-step gameplay loop. You ult, you stand at the edge of the zone, and you shoot to build ult, and you ult again. After that, if you still need to, you can smoke and then shoot and build more ult, or you can just melee. Fairly straightforward. Now, the blowgun is also similar to this gameplay loop, but the slight difference, or really the big difference, is that it has limited ammo. So where you would keep shooting to build an ultimate, you have to swap over and do some melee in order to regain some of that resolve and save ammo for the next spawn. Both playstyles, both gameplay loops are viable, but blowgun tends to be harder for most people because of the limited ammo. But both of them are good and offer, you know, their own benefits, and have, you know, some disadvantages and advantages here and there. So that's basically it. It's very straightforward. So to start off, I'll go over the Weightless Spirit. Spawn is coming in, and I'm shooting to get some of the enemies out the way. And as you can see, I use my 3 strikes here. I just make use of the 40 reload to shoot quickly and get another ult. And then I ult again, and I take care of the Oni Lord, get him out the way. And then right here, I can just finish off by killing that archer. And now, again, damage from Weightless Spirit is low, so I can just spam the headshots with the quick reload, and then just be ready to go to the next spawn. Right here, I didn't even use my smoke. I didn't even use any melee. I was just shooting. That's really it. You shoot, you stand at the edge, you shoot some more, you ult. Just keep doing it. Right here, I smoke, and then I keep repeating. So again, straightforward. It's not technical at all. You know, you just cycling through your ultimate and shooting. And with the 40 reload, in some cases you can use 20. Most people like to use 40 because it's fast, feels great, satisfying. But again, gameplay loop is very straightforward. You ult, edge, build ult again. And as you can see, this is the first time I'm actually using my melee here, melee and vanish. I'm at the 3rd spawn. So again, unless you're trying to do perfect solo or something crazy like that, you really don't have to Moonmaster and vanish with this build. As long as you're just playing edge, you're doing a duo, you're going to be fine without it. So keep that in mind. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. It's a very straightforward playstyle and very easy to repeat because of the infinite ammo, and of course with the strength of playing edge of the zone. Now with the blowgun, it's a little different. Again, you have to save some of the ammo. So I always like to take care of the enemies that are going to be annoying to deal with while I'm just, you know, engaging in melee. So right there, I kill the Oni Lord. I do a little double ult with the kunai there. As you can see, one set of kunai and 3 headshots lines up my next ultimate. And after that, I try not to shoot as much. I only use 1 blowgun dart, and then I Moonmaster cancel there to wrap things up and get ready for the next spawn. Pick up all my ammo, and then I cycle this again. Now again, my ammo is limited, but I have my vanish, and I can start shooting and setting that up for another ultimate. So I make use of the vanish there, and then I line up some headshots, and then I do another ult to clean things up here, and that's pretty much it. Most times, or rather to conserve as much ammo as you can, you might want to run, you know, 5 strike with the blowgun, because you kill more enemies and you can save more ammo, but 3 strikes is just as good. So now that we've discussed the meta for Assassin and P7 in great detail, you know, how can I make use of these gameplay loops in synergy with another player, you know, if it's a duo, to win, you know, to clear survival perfectly consistently? How can I do that? Now, it's fairly straightforward, and there's really only 2 ways to do it, depending on, you know, your composition. The first one is if you're playing a lot of Spirit Kunai focused builds, you obviously want to have 1 player per zone doing their thing. The reason why I want to do this is because it's easier for them to get their resets, you know, get their kit back, get their ability, get their smoke, you know, get their resolve, and then they can go to the next spawn. You know, so right here I have this written out as obviously player 1 takes the first spawn, player 2 takes the second one, and then player 1, you know, goes to the 3rd. Player 2 can go to the 3rd. I mean, it just depends on who clears faster at the end of the day. But you're basically giving each other enough room to execute perfectly, and then, you know, get your resets. You know, that's the play style, or that's the way to go if you're playing Spirit Kunai focused builds. Now, if you're not playing Spirit Kunai focused builds, you can, you know, use the strategy that's detailed in the bottom right there. So you can either take on the first spawn together and double ultimate, and then you can split off, and you know, each player goes on to the next one, and then you can kind of do your own thing there. Now, the reason why you might want to do something like this is if you're, you know, playing a tool shortage map, or if you're playing a rather tough wave and you need the extra damage to prevent, situations where first player can't get to the third spawn fast enough. For a good example of this would be, wave 8 on Blood and Steel, or wave 8 on Twilight and Ashes. Now those waves are very, very heavy, so if you attack them together and you both double ult, and then you can split off, it saves enough time such that you can clear fast and then everybody can go their separate ways. So those are basically, the main strategies you want to do. And you don't always have to, is in the case of the second one, you don't always have to do it that way, because most waves are light. Most waves you can comfortably take them on as a first person and clear and go to the third one. But if you're still learning, and if you're doing duos and you want to carry your own weight, and you really want to get the full experience, especially if you're early in your experience, you might want to take this first spawn together and just kind of like divide up the work that way. It can be a good way to kind of like work on your teamwork, and just get good at working together and clearing. And I don't mind using either or. It just depends on the type of build I'm playing. If I'm playing something that leaves a lot of kunai kills, I want to be left alone. If I'm not, I don't really mind. So it just depends. It just depends. So now that we've discussed the gameplay loops and the strategies, why would a person struggle in Hellmode? Why would they struggle to clear fast? Why would they die a lot? Besides obvious things like quashes and orbs. Now, the main reason is most people don't play the builds that they're playing how they're supposed to play them. If you don't play to the gameplay loop's strengths, you're gonna lose a lot of damage, and you're gonna be overusing, a lot of your resources and leaving yourself exposed to, potential enemies that can one-shot you. So it's a delicate balance. You have to understand the gameplay loop behind the build you're using, so you can play the build correctly. That way you will find that you're faster, you survive more, and you take less damage. We'll do an example. And for that case, we're going to look at the Black Powder Sticky Bomb Assassin. On the left, things that I would not do, and on the right, things that I would do. So in the first, you go into a spawn, it's at the zone, you don't have your ult, and you don't have a lot of ammo. One, you're playing bombs, so you have to kill a disciple manually. So you either have to go into the zone and execute step number 2, where you spam your bombs to build the ult. Now again, you're going to be down on bombs. Or you walk in and you kill the disciple. But when you do that, the enemies will see you, and it'll disrupt your grouping. And by the time that you're done killing the disciple and then you smoke, you don't have grouping, enemies are all over. And notice this, you're already on step number 3 of your gameplay loop, and you haven't started actually killing anybody. You're already, 30 seconds to a minute behind. And by the time you actually start dealing damage, your grouping is messed up, and your resources don't hit everybody that's they're supposed to. And you're already slow. Good chance you're not going to make it to the next spawn unless it's a double or a nice little sandwich. But in that case, you're already throwing your gameplay loop off and you're going to lose. On the right, is how I would do it. Make sure I have ult. I ult in, tag the disciple, and then I smoke by the zone. I get my grouping, and then I stick in concuss. And then I use my black powder bombs. You just gotta keep going at it that way. And having said that, when you look at the gameplay loops and how they synergize with other players, another mistake that other people do is, they use the wrong gameplay loop with the right strategy, or the right, gameplay loop with the wrong strategy. And what do I mean by that? So if you're in a duo and one of you is playing an alt spam build and one of you is playing a heavy reset build, if you take on the first spawn together and one player uses their ability, their toxic vanish, if they're trying to line up some kunai kills, but the other person is just ulting and killing everybody, the other player who's playing vanish is not going to get their reset back. They're not going to get their vanish. They're not going to get their smoke. And then when they have to go to the third spawn, they have nothing. And now they have to scramble and try and survive that way. But again, they're on the back foot because you tackled a wave together, and it the synergy just wasn't there. You know, you didn't do it in a way that it benefited both players. It actually left the other one in a bad position. So these are things you got to think about when you're playing your builds. Like, how does it work with my teammate's build? An example of the right way to do it right here is 8.1. We did the first spawn together. Well, not really. We waited for the good grouping at the zone. I throw some black powder bombs and then I go on my way. That helps my teammate clear a little bit faster and I can go take the second one. Again, I have my ult and I have my smoke and I have my sticky for the second one. I execute the sticky black powder assassin build the right way. You know, I smoke, I get the grouping, I get the black powder bombs, the sticky in there, and then look at it go. Look at the damage right there. It just basically killed those Oni lords. And I'm already playing to build ult and go to the next zone. And exactly as I said before, with my bombs, and here I even used 2 bombs, I can set up a double ult and go into the next, go to the next spawn. So right here, I don't even use my double ult. I already noticed that we don't have any enemies that can kill us, so we just play to clear slowly right here. So it's just clearing. I don't have to ult and waste my ult because I don't get it back quick enough. But that's it, and you can just keep repeating this.
So having discussed the meta from the perspective of Assassin, as you can see, the meta is focused on 2 things. You're either going to play a nuke build or you're going to play some sort of heavy SK rotation play style, and that breaks down into 3 things: your ability centered SK build, your black powder bomb centered SK build, or your bow centered SK build. And the interesting thing is, since Assassin is the most versatile class in the game, every single gameplay loop that we discussed in this video can apply to all the other classes in some degree, shape, or form. Obviously with slight differences in execution in regards to the ability and the ultimate. Some good examples is, if you have your Toxic Vanish Assassin, the Hunter with the Explosive and Spirit Kunai plays pretty much similar, but obviously with a limited invis. And then of course your ult spam, that applies to all the classes. You can ult spam with the bombs with Samurai, you can ult spam with the bombs with Ronin even. You can do the same thing with Assassin. The gameplay can be applied to different classes. You just have to account for the different execution in terms of ultimate and ability. Now, having said that, each one of these gameplay loops, they're not existing in a silo. They can be used in conjunction with each other. For example, if you're playing a Spirit Kunai centered build with the bombs, if you play for the concussions, you can ult spam quite effectively with those as well, and then you're just chaining your kunai, which is also effective. And then the other thing is, obviously the amount of attention and detail that's needed for Spirit Kunai builds, you don't want to use those in like matchmaking or with a lot of people where your setups will get interrupted. That's why it's usually better if you're playing in survival with more people than just go for the simple gameplay loops like the ult spam, that have that don't require a lot of setups and whatnot, and you're just doing 2 things: ulting, shooting, and then ulting some more. So that being said, I think in the next video we'll discuss the off meta, and this would be a slight different. We can compare and contrast and see how the off meta works. What type of gameplay loops, if present, are there, and then how can you incorporate them into the meta such that you can be effective while also being able to flex on your enemies with stealth or with cool melee. So that'll be exciting to do, and that should be in the next video. So thanks for watching, guys, Take care.